Descent Podcast.
Hey everyone, just want to give a big shout out to our December sponsor, F1 Delta Time. F1 Delta Time is an officially licensed Formula One blockchain-based game that utilizes the Ethereum blockchain to bring you a full Formula One racing experience, coupled with a revolution in gaming in the form of true digital ownership and a play-to-earn model. F1 Delta Time is all about collecting scarce digital items to fill your garage and leveraging these items to go head-to-head in multiplayer racing. Visit f1deltatime.com to join in various events running throughout December. That's F1deltatime.com. Hey everybody, Matthew here. Thank you for listening to the Matthew and Rizzle Show. This is the last episode of 2020. I can't believe this effing crazy year is at an end, but I'm kind of glad it is. We have an awesome conversation that Rizzle and I recorded with Roneil, the CEO and co-founder of Audius, the blockchain-based music platform that's kind of been blowing up over the course of this year. They have like millions of people that are listening to songs there. They're trying to change the game in terms of artist and creator compensation. Just an amazing project. We had a cool conversation about Roneil's background, starting out creating a Bitcoin-focused startup before working at Kleiner Perkins and VC before co-founding Audius. Audius has, among other things, truly kind of decentralized the governance process amongst its users. Like they literally cannot push out an update or an upgrade, things like this, unless the token holders vote and approve it. So in a space where a lot of governance tokens have little to no governance value, it's been refreshing to see Audius go fully down that avenue to see the true value of taking a truly user-owned approach. And then their latest mainnet launch for staking, which is a pretty big deal as well. So without further ado, I want to make sure that we get into the episode. But first, especially to everyone listening at the Token Smart listening party for this. Shout out to everyone there. Thank you so much for showing up to these listening parties. To me, I feel like this is the best way to consume a podcast. I'll be in the crowd joining all of you as well. Big thank you there. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy the conversation that Rizzle and I had with Roneil from Audius. Okay, Roneil. Welcome to the Matthew and Rizzle Show.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and to get started, I think it would be pretty cool if you could give a little self-introduction, kind of going back into your professional background, what you did up until you co-founded Audius, and then tell the audience a little bit about what Audius actually is.
Totally. So yeah, I guess I can start with the, how did you get into crypto and how did you have that moment with the white paper or whatever, which I didn't really, but I do think the stories are a bit repetitive and funny. So me and a group of friends in college basically started mining at the time. This was like 2012, 2013, these S-crypt altcoins, like Litecoin and Dogecoin, and there were like 10 or 20 of them. I don't even remember all of them. But we had basically found a way to kind of acquire in somewhat bulk the Radeon 7950 GPUs, which at the time were kind of the best kind of performance per watt for S-crypt mining. So that was actually like, there was no like, oh, I just read the white paper and had some epiphany or something. This was just like, oh, this is a cool way for us to make a little bit of beer money and nothing more. So started mining and playing around with things a little bit more. We use these coin switching pools that basically would switch around between these S-crypt coins based on which one was most profitable and cash it all out to you in Bitcoin. So we all had a good little bit of Bitcoin, and started wanting to make payments to each other for things. And there was no easy way to do that. Like, oh, we're going out to dinner, or let me pay you back in Bitcoin instead of in dollars. So me and one of those friends in 2014 tried to build something to do that, like a Venmo for Bitcoin is how I would describe it. And that was my first like actual, time spent hacking on and building on stuff in crypto. So I'm a software engineer by background more than anything else. That's sort of like what I, in high school and in college did on the side, and then obviously in college, like I guess got to study it a little bit more formally. But I always kind of come at these problems from the angle of a builder. But in this case, like the Venmo for Bitcoin, it turned out no one else really wanted that. That was like an us problem. Everyone else wanted to accumulate Bitcoin but not send it, right? Not spend it. So we at our peak got to like 25,000 or so monthly users, and ended up deciding to wind that down in early 2015. And after that, found my way over to a venture firm called Kleiner Perkins. So me and a couple of others started their seed practice, and I covered crypto for that. So I joined the seed for Lightning Labs, like the Lightning Network company. We did a few other seeds around cross-border payments and some other areas. So I spent a couple of years there. In 2017, like early mid 2017, I kind of got the itch to go build stuff again. It was great to have like gotten a chance to sort of more formally, like professionally work in the crypto scene from that angle. But I wanted to get back to building things. So I left the firm, spent like 6 months hacking around on stuff with my now co-founder Forrest, and his background's actually more like he and a group of friends started this like data center analytics tool. It was like for license tracking within a data center environment, and sold that company in like early 2017. And he didn't really, I think he was kind of done with the whole enterprise sales kind of cycle and strategy. So he sold that company, ended up deciding to leave the acquirer, around the same time that I left Kleiner. So we started hacking on stuff together. He was also part of that friend group that was mining. And the one other thing I think that bound that friend group together was electronic music. So we all used to go out to shows through college. A couple of friends in that group were producers as well. But actually kind of where the inspiration for Audius really came from actually was in like 2014, 2015 or so. We were seeing all of our favorite creators getting kicked off of SoundCloud primarily at the time, right? Or their music was disappearing, or there were kind of a lot of issues that came up in the SoundCloud community around that, and that was the community that we were both kind of a part of and engaging with heavily. So it was funny, like in 2015, Forrest and I had a conversation about like, what if, because we had both been doing the mining stuff and been in and around crypto for a bit at that time, or like, what if you could decentralize this, right? Like, what if you could have a tool for distributing audio that like no single company controlled, so that like no company could make these kind of arbitrary decisions with the livelihood of their customers, right? And we concluded at the time it wasn't possible to build such a thing, and that was just like one 15-minute conversation. We kind of forgot about it. We revisited the idea when we were hacking on stuff in like late 2017, early 2018, and hacked together a prototype, and to kind of almost like convince ourselves that like this was technically possible, and ended up being that way. So that was sort of the genesis of the product and the protocol. So Forrest and I kind of built up a team around it. We launched the first version of Audius publicly about a year ago now. So late September 2019 is when the first version came out. And then almost exactly a year later, in October 2020, the Audius mainnet launched. So for that first year, we were kind of in a incentivized testnet, but a public testnet, so people were able to use it through that time, and all of the content uploaded during the testnet period actually migrated over to the mainnet as well. So yeah, it's been kind of a crazy ride. Today we see about 1.5 million people use Audius every month. About 200,000 tracks have been uploaded, and it's just been kind of wild to see like what the community has gone and run with this thing.
Can you give like sort of like a ground floor overview of like exactly how it works? Like I'm a musician, maybe I have some stuff on SoundCloud, I have some stuff on Spotify. Like what's the big, and I have like some idea, but interested in hearing like your take on it. Like what's the big perk, and what do I as a musician like get out of bringing my portfolio over to Audius?
Yeah, so when we talk about like Audius more broadly, the kind of intro we give is Audius is a digital streaming service that connects fans directly with artists and exclusive new content. So breaking that down a little bit, that direct piece is really where we see the differentiation of Audius being compared to traditional platforms. So for you as an artist, like your kind of incentive right now to share things on Audius is to have build a direct relationship with your fans and own that relationship in a way that like no one can take away from you, and then sort of with an eye towards being able to more effectively monetize that relationship with your fans in future. So monetization is not live in Audius today. That's something that we foresee the kind of our team collaborating with the community and the community kind of putting forth a monetization scheme via the public governance process that folks are really excited about. But right now it's really like all content on Audius is free. So there's no financial incentive. It's actually really just people see or believe that their ability to own the relationship with their fans on Audius will eventually lead to like a better way to monetize those fans as well. Separately to as part of the mainnet launch a couple of months ago, the part of the Genesis token supply that the network minted was actually distributed to all of the kind of top users of the protocol. So the top 10,000 accounts measured by there was this formula that the community came up with to sort of effectively rank accounts based on how much they had been helping grow the product. So those folks actually all earned some of that like Genesis distribution as well. But that was really more meant to like get control of governance and everything else distributed across the user community. That's not meant to be like a monetization system. So that's still coming. But anyway, hopefully that answers that. It really just comes down to that, like ability to own the relationship with fans.
Are you specifically targeting musicians? And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, we're obviously on this podcast that we record on a regular basis. We've got at least like 6 trillion fans per episode that are tuning into this thing. So I'm like, are you looking for all different types of like streaming media, or is it like pretty much musician focused at this point? Or, what's the broad net that you cast?
Totally. It's any and all audio. That's why we called it Audius, and that's why the token's also called audio. So yeah, podcasts, any form of audio we see as being a perfect fit to be shared on to be shared on Audius. So I think the thing that's kind of held back podcast adoption so far is there's no RSS importer, right? So like the way I imagine you all publish your podcast, right, is you publish it via one of those RSS providers, and then you kind of put that RSS feed into iTunes and all of the other places that like end users go and pull podcasts from, so that you can publish in one place and distribute. It would be pretty cool if like music distribution were as open as podcast distribution were. But on the podcast side, at least, someone in the community needs to build that RSS importer, I think, for this to really work. So we're aware of a few groups kind of trying to do something like that, but yeah, I think for that reason primarily, Audius has been almost entirely music thus far. Like if you look at what's trending and what's what's performed well on Audius from like a listener base perspective, it's almost all music.
Yeah, and I mean, full disclosure, I've been on Audius since basically end of September 2019, right before we went over to DevCon Osaka, and been a pretty heavy user. Rizzle, I've actually uploaded a couple of our episodes over there, in addition to curating some, in my opinion, some pretty dank playlists. And because of that, it's been awesome to see the progression of the platform get better and better, more and more robust. And then in October, with that airdrop for those 10,000 users of the audio token, it was really nice to open up my account and see a quite sizable amount of audio tokens there. And I think you alluded to the governance aspect of the audio platform. And I know that's tied into the audio token. And recently you just had staking went live on the platform. So I think this would probably be a great place to kind of dive into the audio token economics, how it's set up to kind of facilitate staking, feature access, governance, and sort of like the longer term vision there. If you want to kind of unpack that for us, that'd be great.
Totally. Yeah, you kind of you hit it perfectly right there. We see the functionality of the token within the Audius ecosystem as being kind of centered around three pillars of use. So security, feature access, and governance, as you just mentioned. So the security side is really that staking mechanic. So you can so actually, I guess, rewinding a little bit. So Audius is run by a community of node operators on the network. So all of the content is hosted and indexed by these nodes that, like you guys or anyone else could go run and register on the network if you put up kind of that minimum self bond requirement. So I guess where staking comes into that is the way that like those nodes are coordinated with one another, and the way that nodes can be, basically be part of that registry that now means that end users and everyone else can consume the stuff that they're the kind of service that they're providing. They have to put up a stake of tokens, but in exchange for putting up that stake, the network actually mints new audio tokens over time and distributes those ratably to folks staking the token. So you can run a node yourself and stake, or you can delegate to someone else's node. And actually, it was over the last 2 months or so since the mainnet launch, all of that staking system has been live, and what the network was kind of going through was like this migration from that incentivized testnet over to the mainnet. So all of the node operators that were on the testnet kind of needed to like re-register themselves into the mainnet and put up like the real tokens as bond and everything else. And we recently crossed the threshold required to to kick off for the network to kick off staking rewards. So there's now kind of that financial incentive side for folks to do this work on behalf of the network. But anyway, yeah, so that's somewhat of a tangent. So that's the security side. Feature access is really like there's features that consume like network-wide resources that artists will have to stake Audius tokens to be able to access some of over time. We feel very strongly that there are opportunities for anyone to show up to Audius in the same way that that you did, and be able to contribute value and earn some tokens back from the network for contributing that value. So we want to make sure there are always ways for someone to actually like earn the ability to unlock those features, right? But regardless, there's sort of to kind of properly manage the use of resources there at the network level. There are some features that artists need to put up a stake of tokens to be able to access. And then the governance bit.
What sort of features would that entail that they could unlock?
Yeah, so I think there are some, like, for example, there's starting to be some abuse patterns on the system of folks uploading like static noise or like things like this, right? Like when you can upload like as much as you'd like and with no restrictions, right? There, people come up with interesting ways to and I actually don't think any of it's malicious. I think it's just people are like trying to figure out what are the boundaries of this thing and what will it let you do. So there are some things like that, like probably to be able to upload more than some amount of audio. Either you need to be getting played more than a certain threshold, or like you need to put up a stake of these tokens. Similarly, there are some kind of like financial primitives that we're excited to roll out, but like as an artist, having to put up some stake of tokens to be able to unlock some of those is a good Sybil resistance mechanism. So like if if someone were to try to go upload content from someone who that was made by someone else and that the uploader doesn't have the permission to share, putting up a stake like that can be slashed in the case of the person misbehaving in that manner is a chance for that process to be more crypto economically secured. And specifically, I mentioned that around monetization because that's where there's now like a financial incentive potentially for people to go do these kind of negative things. So I guess it's actually, you could kind of frame this as almost like, intertwined with or related to that security piece, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of, like we don't, you heard why we started working on Audius, right? Like our goal here is not to kind of extract value from creators at the network level. It's quite the opposite, right? It's to help creators better monetize and share what they want to share. But there are some interesting kind of crypto economic security issues that the token is able to solve for us around that. And the cool thing there too is it's not like you're having to pay a fee to access these things. It's actually like you're required to own a portion of the kind of the network in exchange for that, and that is still an asset that like you could unstake and do other things with, right? So I think that was sort of how we thought about that.
And I feel like anytime you try to create like a broad incentivization mechanism, you're at least in the beginning stages, you're probably playing algorithmic whack-a-mole to people who are trying to like abuse the system or trying to figure out a quick way to make a buck. And I'm, one of these people who likes to kick tires as well, as Matthew knows very well, actually. And just sort of interested in hearing, like, has anything like surprising come up with ways of people trying to like beat the system? Like you caught my ear when you said like people uploading like white noise or something. And I'm sure there's like, all sorts of ways people people try to like, snag a couple extra tokens. Anything like, out of left field that's really come up that you've had to, try and deal with or whatever?
Oh yeah, totally. So we've seen a lot of, I guess, things that could have been predicted or expected. As I mentioned, Forrest and I were both like very, very heavy users of SoundCloud back in its heyday, and we're starting to actually see some of those behavior patterns that caused issues for SoundCloud recur here. So like repost chains are an example of this. So the
Okay.
groups organize to to repost one another's content, and by doing so, kind of try to trick the trending algorithm to like push their content higher up the stack. So we kind of this was one that like we had anticipated, right? And there were two ways we sort of combated it. One is there's actually a setting, a toggle in the feed that lets you disable reposts. Like I have enough like people I follow from my Audius account, for example, that like the kind of repost curation introduces like too much noise into my feed. So sometimes I just want to know like what's stuff that's posted directly by the people I follow and not stuff that's reposted. And then separately, our trending system. So one of the interesting issues, generally around an open source system like this, right, is people can go read the trending algorithm, right? Like if you go to the Audius GitHub and like go look through the code, you can actually find the trending algorithm. So we kind of it's funny if anyone listening like goes and finds it. It was actually run through like a code obfuscator. So it is open source, but there's some obfuscation around the inputs and how those inputs are kind of manipulated to produce the result. But regardless, people always try to game that leaderboard however they can. And then I mean, a lot of the same things that you would expect, like having seen what happened on SoundCloud, like people trying to build bots to increase their play counts or to like favorite their like basically people trying to fake actions against their content to drive up all these metrics. I mean, I think we've actually been able to kind of stop most of this behavior just with like aggressive rate limits and other things that the nodes on the network actually enforce, kind of mostly from the perspective of IP address as the limit, but like you're never going to get all of them. It's a game of like 90. You can catch like or prevent like 95 to 99% of like the naive botting. Your kind of broader trending data and everything else ends up still being accurate and not manipulated, but it's this kind of constant cat and mouse. So sorry, I never actually answered what were the things we didn't expect. So I think one of the more interesting ones, and we thought maybe this would eventually happen, but like probably not anytime soon, was people trying to pay one another to get placement on playlists or other things. So this is like a big issue in Spotify. So the Spotify, think about like Rap Caviar or playlists like that. Kind of the well-known secret in the music industry is that those that is not a meritocratic process, right? There is a way for folks to pay to like place content on that list, to boost it up the list, all these things. So like that whole system has become quite corrupt. It's kind of just like payola again, right? If anyone's familiar with this sort of form of this type of abuse dates back to like the 1960s 1970s, right? Like this us doing these things on the internet doesn't change the incentives to kind of manipulate the trends and sort of what people are listening to. We just did not expect that to happen so early in the life of the Audius network, right? Like this product's been out in the wild for a year, and we're starting to hear from like the bigger playlist curators on the Audius network that like people are starting to ask them like, oh, can I pay you to hear my content and then to place it on your playlist? So yeah, these things were very surprising. So I think we need to figure out a way to like combat that, and also a way to like make sure that our team is removed from the process of curation of content, right? So there's one perspective, which is like if a random person making a playlist on Audius wants to engage in a financial transaction with an artist to like to surface their content or whatever, it's a free market. They could do that, but the market should be deciding then what are the playlists that we care the most about, right? So that's where like the process of discovering and surfacing playlists actually needs to be something that is sort of community first and community driven as well. So I think that was where sort of Spotify has had some issues where they kind of the like Rap Caviar's run by Spotify the company, but I don't want to go too far into detail there to betray like the confidence of folks who've told me some of these things, but like they have to know that there are these under the table payments happening to place things in those playlists, right? And they just turn a blind eye, and I think that's a really unfortunate thing, right? And yeah,
Totally. Actually, I had one outstanding question about the audio token, about the governance aspect that we didn't touch on. And the reason why I want to kind of dig into this is because, I mean, from what I've heard so far, like it actually has a governance function. I know a lot of other projects have released quote unquote like governance tokens, but in practice, they are actually more like advisory tokens where the community can use their token power to kind of vote on things, but the vote is really just saying, hey, we want this, but the core team is able at the end of the day to say, yeah, we're not going to make any changes. But thank you for letting us know this feedback. And I'm curious to kind of dig into the governance aspects of audio as it relates to Audius. Like I'm curious, like the cadence of these community votes or quorums, and then if something is voted and passed through, like what is that compelling? Like how are you guys bound to the decisions of the community to follow through on those votes and stuff like that?
That's such a great question, and it kind of harkens back to our original philosophy in creating Audius, which was that like we wanted to create something that was owned and controlled by the community, kind of in this very Marxist sort of sense, giving creators ownership of their own means of production, right? Like creators should own their kind of ability to distribute content and not have a company be able to capriciously choose to rip away that right from them, right? And kind of so where that philosophy goes into governance is actually with the launch of the mainnet 2 months ago. Our team is not capable of changing the code that runs Audius. Like we can't change the smart contracts. We can't change the off-chain versions of code that node operators are running. All of these changes actually have to go through the public community governance process. And literally like on chain, the way that the this is implemented, like there's on the smart contracts that power like staking and governance and all these other things, they permission the ability to upgrade them to only that governance address. So the governance contract has to decide, based on a vote, like, okay, this change has been approved by the community, and only then will it actually execute like the proxy change out, right? So using, I guess this gets like very technical, but the kind of that Solidity proxy pattern thing lets you change out the code that operates a given contract, and the only way to call the function to change the code is via that governance contract that was deployed. So we kind of like handed over the keys to the kingdom to the community as part of this launch, and that was like the whole point of it, right? And to your point, like, it frustrates me a lot that there's this governance theater in crypto where like there's not, like, the governance tokens often don't actually do anything, right? In our case, it actually is our team can't make changes anymore to this thing, and we felt that was a really important check on kind of sort of decentralized power in the community, right? In that there can never be a situation in the future where we as in the individuals that helped build the first version of Audius make a decision that the community doesn't want us to make. Like, we actually just can't. And I think that's something, that's something that we didn't want to compromise on. And I think we actually took a lot of inspiration from and even code from Compound around this. So Compound's governance system kind of behaves in the same way. It's this very flexible kind of thing that basically people can vote to run any function via the governance contract. So the originator of the transaction becomes the governance system. If they're, so the governance system can call any other arbitrary contract and call a function on that contract. And then those contracts all just permission the ability to call those things to that governance address. So it's like quite a simple and elegant model, but one that like immediately sort of takes the power out of our hands to make changes. And then version changes, all of that stuff actually have to that is those off code versions, those changes actually have to happen via this on-chain service version registry for clients on the network to like to be able to connect to them, and same thing there. So like there's actually kind of a check on that whole process at the community level. So yeah, I mean, look, I think I don't want to sit here and toot our own horn forever. I think we still have work to do on governance as well, just in terms of like kind of getting community participation to where it needs to be. But the mechanism is there, right? Like we actually, already today, like our team has no ability to make changes to the system. So it's going to be interesting to see how these play out in practice too. My hope is that this is not, these fully democratic based governance systems can sometimes trend towards like nothing happening, right? And I think we've seen this a little bit in Uniswap, right, where they also had this quorum issue, right, that was very, very difficult to meet. But I think the community there has tended more towards like inaction, and I don't think that's any fault of the Uniswap team. I think it's just it's just a tough situation, right, around that quorum requirement and whatnot. But my hope is that the Audius community can trend very much in the opposite direction, in that like all of the stuff in our space is so early, right? We all need to be willing to kind of change things quickly and move quickly and do all of those things. And I feel like a lot of folks in the crypto community, I'm curious what you all think of this too, see kind of agility and like community involvement and community governance as being like mutually exclusive things. And I don't see why that has to be the case. It's just a question of, yeah.
I was just about to like ask you about, because I feel like the governance tokens can be implemented well and effectively, but I also feel like, on the flip side is you get into this over governance situation where you're sort of handcuffed by the community, and which is why I'm generally not a huge fan of that approach. And not saying that you guys are doing anything right or wrong. I mean, all of these things are somewhat of an experiment just to sort of like see how they take shape over the long term. But that would be my main concern, is that, you know, this is a rapidly moving space, and, you know, a lot of us are in the position where we've got to pivot on the fly. And, you know, you and your buddies who've started this project are probably the experts who are more qualified to make like decisions on the fly, regardless of whether or not the community thinks it's a good decision. You know, I would argue that, you know, a lot of times the people in control are in control for a reason, and it's because they can steer the ship better than everybody else. So yeah, I'm just wondering, like, do you have concerns of this, like, sort of taking on a nature of that you didn't want it to, or being handcuffed by, you know, trying to force decisions through the community, or do you have some sort of like safeguards built in place in terms of like what is governed and what's not to, you know, sort of safeguard yourselves against that?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and I think it really gets at sort of the core issues that these systems face. So I would actually push back a little bit there on your characterization that like we know what's best for this community. Like Forrest and I aren't artists, right? Like the team of folks that has built Audius, like are there are some folks who are producers on the side and whatnot, but like the reason we're here building these tools is because we're not like successful musicians or creators, right? So
fair enough, man.
You know, like I think there's a perspective you know, that we just don't have, right? And that like you know, I don't know that we necessarily know what's best for our community. Like obviously we do everything we do with positive intent and with, you know, positive goals in mind, but you know, like, yeah, it's just some of these choices are somewhat like arbitrary, right? But getting into the nuances of your question a little bit more, I think there's a spectrum here, right? Like a year ago or a year and a half ago, like when the first version of Audius went public, there was like a level of both just like a basic bug breakage, but also, you know, like an agility we needed to get features out very quickly and everything else that would have made a community governance process, like, you know, quite difficult for the team, right? Like it would have hobbled us quite a bit. So I think there's kind of but you know, I guess like there came a time where we felt like things had stabilized enough and ossified enough that like we could hand off to the community the ability to control the system moving forward, and do so in a way that, like, you know, I think basically can strengthen the network and give it the longevity that we wanted, right? And kind of decouple decouple the network from like the team that built the original version of it. And I do think so. There are some limited good examples of this working. I know this will come across as like blasphemous for the folks that you know, like are very kind of like ETH maxi, ETH excited, but I think Decred has actually done like a really good job of basically democratizing control of the network, but not sacrificing their agility. So like they actually vote on things like, you know, what PR firm do we pay from the court, you know, the community treasury, to like all these other things. And they've that community has managed to like train itself towards, you know, moving quickly, right? And you know, making decisions quickly and making good decisions. So like, you know, I always want like our team to be involved in that process, right? Like if we can have a chance to share like what do we think is the best way to do things, but like the community needs to be able to override us, right? If we you know, are making choices that they don't agree with, right? And I think the only way to do that is to actually like, you know, invert the power structure there, right? To really you know, and again, I think this all ties into like our broader philosophy and approach with the project. I think for some projects that may or may not make sense. I think just the kind of the pattern of abuse in the history of like music distribution and digital music more generally made us feel that this was the only way to create something that had durability and longevity beyond just the sort of the work that our team would do.
Yeah, and I think that like a key part of this like governance aspect, especially heading forward over time to make sure that it works well, is probably to have a key group of really engaged users, obviously on the creator musician side, but then they themselves bringing in a sizable fan base that gets interested and invested enough to kind of really care about the changes that are happening to the platform and kind of raising the suggested changes or additions that need to happen. And I mean, you guys have been from the very beginning. I know you've had big names on the platform. I think deadmau5 was part of like the initial musician cohort. You also have like Skrillex, Blau, Rack, like some really big names. But on the flip side of those big names coming on and uploading some audio content, I'm curious if you've seen any sort of like Audius native musicians come onto the platform, not necessarily having the biggest name, but establishing a presence and a pretty like a non-trivial fan base on Audius. Because I feel like that's the segment that could be potentially magical heading forward, both for like attracting new musicians and new fans, but also from like the governance part, because those people are going to be hella incentivized to be all over any sort of like governance proposals or suggesting what should be changed on the platform.
Yeah, and actually, to your point too, those are the people who have been most involved in that community process so far as well. So to quickly answer there, yeah, we have seen. So some examples of this are like Camafly is one whose following on Audius is larger than his following on SoundCloud, or I'm assuming him actually. It's like an alias. He hasn't. Or they haven't shown their face, but you can kind of guess. Like I've seen them perform on Twitch and whatnot, and But anyway, so Camafly I think is a really good example of that. Like our team doesn't know who this is actually, despite a lot of interaction with them. We still suspect it might be an alt, like of a larger producer, but we don't know who. So that's kind of funny. And then Galazy is another one that I mentioned. He actually was just like a mod in our community Discord for a long time. So he just was one of these like really early community members that was so excited about what Audius was doing that he wanted to be involved. And actually, like, his kind of work in the broader community has led him to building up like extremely meaningful following on Audius that's far larger than his following on SoundCloud or anywhere else. So like and another anecdote on this actually too, we've heard of folks at like a well-known label A&R department starting to build analytics tools to mine the data on Audius to try to identify like talent breaking out, and to try to find like people who are hitting like an inflection point in their following or in their growth or anything else. So like, yeah, we actually are, and we are starting to see that, I think, on the order of like tens of creators who have like reached that like thousands to tens of thousands of followers level on Audius, in the absence of a large following elsewhere, which has been really, really cool to see. And I think, to your point, like, that's something that obviously we're very, very excited to see more of over time.
And then I guess like a related question is, what are some of the top artists that you like to listen to? Like, who's in your playlist on Audius that you kind of go back to?
That's such a great question. So it's hard for me to point to any like set of top artists, but what I will share is like who I've been listening to recently and really enjoying. So I came across this guy. Actually don't know how to say his artist name necessarily, but Nebita, I think it's like Nebita. And his music's like a very cool mix of kind of like pop punk vibes with like kind of auto tune and electronic production techniques. It's just like really cool, and it works really well. I just came across his stuff on Audius a few days ago. I've been really enjoying. I'm just going through my favorites list, and I can share who. Camoufly, obviously the one I mentioned before. There's a guy named MAI or My, his or her alias is My World on Audius.
It just performed at the Whip today.
Yes, yeah. So that's how I came across their stuff on Audius like a few months ago, and have just been following along, and it's been like, I mean, it's a phenomenal producer, right? And like it's just so cool to see that type of stuff. So anyway, those are like the 3 or 4 folks that I've been listening to a lot recently. It's the list is like too many to count now, but I also I maintain a playlist of sets and mixtapes that I enjoy, and like I think that's sort of like my go-to, like when I'm hanging out or whatever, like having kind of that set it and forget it style of long form content. We've also seen a lot of that emerge on Audius as kind of a leading use case, which I'm personally a huge fan of, obviously, because I love electronic music, and I think there's a form of expression that comes in that curation of long form experiences.
Dude, I was really trying to avoid using this as an excuse to shamelessly plug the Token Smart 2020 Get the F Out Music Festival on New Year's Eve, but My World will be playing it, man. So you should come hang out, check out the live set from our boy My World, who crushed it yesterday at the Whip, for sure, man, as well as like a ton of other NFT blockchain native artists. Dude, the follow-up question to Matt's, which plays in nicely, that we always like to ask people is, what other like projects outside your own, are you interested in tinkering around with, NFTs you got in your wallet? You've been in the crypto game for a long time, so what outside of your wheelhouse is also in your wallet, or have you been playing around with?
Oh yeah, totally. So I've been playing around this space for a good while, and like I'm so excited about the broader wave of like creator tools and creator engagement stuff that's blowing up in crypto right now. Everything from NFTs to social tokens to I guess I would just broadly categorize all this, and I think Audius fits into that category too, as like ways for creators and curators to better engage with fans and monetize fans. So like I'm really enjoying seeing the work that like Zora and Foundation and Roll and all those folks are doing around kind of social tokens and drops of sort of these content-based experiences like RAC's tape or like things like that. Other things like totally not related to sort of creator tools and creator stuff. As a lot of folks I think probably have seen by now, Audius is migrating a portion of the system that runs on this thing called POA network. It's like an Ethereum sidechain to Solana, and I'm very excited about what Solana has been doing as well, just from like a usability and performance perspective, like what that can bring to the users of these things. Also very excited about the graph that actually this morning, yesterday morning, I think it was. I'm all messed up on time zones. I'm in Taiwan right now, so it's like, it's just hard to keep track of which day is which. But yeah, that's a whole nother conversation too. But I just got here a little while ago. But anyway, I'm a huge fan of the team at the Graph and the work that they're doing to help make data more discoverable and more accessible. And it's so cool to see the broader community recognizing that too, in the form of, how their token has been received at launch. Anyway, sorry, I could eat up like all of our time talking about this. I just am so excited about the whole space, obviously, and yeah, like it's just such a cool time for all of us to get to be building and working in this area.
Agreed, man.
First of all, sidebar. I had assumed you were still in LA. I'm in Seoul too, so it's like 3 a.m. my time. It's like 2 a.m. now.
Oh shit!
Where you're, yeah, I'm so sorry for scheduling terribly.
Oh no, dude, you're good. I'm in the 14-day quarantine right now. I just got here like a week ago.
Okay.
And I've just been staying on Pacific time this whole time. So,
okay.
So I'm all good. I woke up like 3 hours ago or whatever. I sleep from 2 p.m. to midnight. But dude, what brings you to Seoul? That's awesome.
So I've been here for the last 12 years. So I came here for university, graduated, worked at Samsung, and then just kind of, it's an amazing place to live. Quite similar to awesome. Taiwan in a lot of respects.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought you were in LA as well. I actually am usually in San Francisco. Then I moved to Tahoe last year, so I'd been spending a lot of time up in Incline Village in Lake Tahoe. But that's so funny. Small world, man.
Super small world. But before we wrap up, I just want to make sure we give you a chance to shout out any of the updates people should be looking out for. Obviously, staking rewards we already mentioned, but if there's any channels you want people to definitely follow you or Audius at, this would be a great chance to share all that information.
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about Audius and keep up with what the community is working on and doing over here, follow us on Twitter at Audius Project. It's AUDIUS Project is the handle. That's the primary kind of channel of communication there. Also come hang out in our Discord if you're ever wanting to kind of get more involved in things. And yeah, staking rewards actually on the Audius network are just kicked off today. So you're recording this on Friday, December 18th. So yeah, come get involved. Vote on proposals, hang out in the community, and we'd love to see you there.
Cool. And thank you so much, Roneil, for taking the time out of your schedule to speak with us. Super sorry about making it really early morning for you, but I'm glad somehow that ended up working out for everyone. And I'm just
dude, you're all good. I think I actually hadn't even come here when we scheduled this yet. I kind of decided last minute to I was like, I don't want to have New Year's at home without leaving the house. And yeah, I mean, I think Korea is the same. Like, there's no COVID, so you can just do whatever. It's great,
Exactly. Cool, man. Well, I just want to say I'm really excited to continue to watch the amazing progress of you and what the whole team and community are building out over at Audius. So thank you once again for speaking with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys.
I definitely think we should make this the most popular podcast ever on Audius, and we'll work a little bit behind the scenes to beat the algorithm and won't tell them about it.
There we go.
Just kidding.
Later, y'all.
Not really.
Hey, everyone. Just want to give a big shout out to our December sponsor, F1 Delta Time. F1 Delta Time is an officially licensed Formula One blockchain-based game that utilizes the Ethereum blockchain to bring you a full Formula One racing experience, coupled with a revolution in gaming in the form of true digital ownership and a play-to-earn model. F1 Delta Time is all about collecting scarce digital items to fill your garage and leveraging these items to go head-to-head in multiplayer racing. Visit f1deltatime.com to join in various events running throughout December. That's numeral 1, DELTATIME.com.
Podcast.